Hello everyone, my name is Justin Graves, and today on another episode of Elocution, we will be talking about the gender roles between Western Europe and Southeast Asia. Now before you start the video, I would wish for you to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's dive on in.
At the end of every unit, your teacher has the chance to teach a lesson about other lessons in their context to enhance. But what do you suppose our teacher has us do? He skips the lesson and makes us present a digital LEQ. Elocution is historical evidence, reasoning that can corroborate in advance. A complexity says that Dr. John P. Irish would admire, then we drop this screencast like a single that is fire. Student created screencast for you to like, subscribe, and share. We know you've had all the John Green, and it's the Heimler you can bear. If we have the most views by 10 p.m. Eastern on the 15th, we earn 500 bundle points, which virtually guarantees a name. Without much more, for fair or ado, we present our digital LEQ.
While you watch this video, I want you to consider the following. How are gender roles in the home similar in Eastern Asia and Western Europe? How are gender roles in the workplace similar in Eastern Asia and Western Europe? And did the roles in the home and workplace differ between the two regions? How did this all start? Industrialization, of course. Industrialization exploded around the 18th century as the opportunities for use of resources such as water, coal, and minerals allowed Britain to create new products to be sold. This resulted in the construction of factories and the spread of production. Soon, other nations followed by example. However, women were able to find their way in the workplace as well, but that doesn't mean that they have fair treatment. So how did these two vastly different regions compete? Well, in both regions, women were scrutinized in the home as men were treated like kings, and in the factories, women were upheld to impossible standards with limited space and protection. However, in East Asia, women were primarily worked in cotton mills, while in Western Europe, they worked in textile factories. Starting out, Gwen Fries from BBC interviewed a woman named Terry Jones, who is a factory worker. Currently, she is now 69 years old. In the interview, Terry Jones shared her personal experience of being a factory girl between a time period of 1966 and 1973. And her story states as follows. I was already pretty good at knitting and crocheting, having made lots of my own miniskirts and tops by hand. But the work in the factory was on a completely different level. Even the training was almost impossible. We were using Path and Singer industrial machines that were incredibly dangerous as they went so fast. This story shows that women in Europe were forced to use dangerous equipment and work at high standards that were unreasonable to them at the time, as even they couldn't get through basic training. This is a graph of the amount of workers in different occupations in Western Europe during 1851 from Economic History. This source gives a look into the job landscape between men and women. With women having been limited in the workplace, it shows that they were vastly treated without fairness in Western Europe. The following image comes from History Today in 1993, the world's leading history magazine. The picture was used in an article by Professor Janet Hunter, who discusses the conditions in life Japanese women face from Japan's rapid industrialization. The women's expressions appear with depression and misery as they slave away, preparing cocoons in hot water for spinning silk. When compared with the quote from Terry Jones, who was from Western Europe, both face the concept of being mistreated and slaving away in the workplace just because they're women. This corroborates with a story from AsiaSociety.org, which states, in some areas, women were recruited as cheap wage labor on plantations and at processing factories. At the village level, colonial regimes strengthened the male position as head of the household and reformed customary laws that had given women considerable autonomy. So besides being quoted as cheap wage labor in Japan, in East Asia, women were also seen in the household as very weak, as they had no power while the men had all the power. However, when we compare this to Caroline Norton, who is an English social reform worker, we can see that they were vastly the same, as she shared her own story to anyone who was willing to hear about how women were treated in her household, which quoted, "In arguing my case from my own example, I am not ignorant that there are people who think such argument blamable on other grounds, who deem a husband right so indefeasible and his house so sacred that even a wronged wife should keep silence." With the implication coming that Caroline Norton was abused as a wife and as a female, when we compare it to Asia Society, as they quoted how women were treated with having no power, we can see that they both face the same crisis. Continuing in Western Europe, we have some information gathered by London's Central Criminal Court from the Old Bailey. This article explains the differences for roles of men and women in different parts of society in Eastern Asia. In marriage, men were expected to rule over their wives, and all property belonged to the husband. Men were the primary wage earners, while women were expected to be primarily responsible for housework and childcare, though both sexes participated in all these activities. When we compare this to the occupation facts that we just gained and the knowledge of women being abused in Western Europe, we can see that both regions had the same amount of women power that was very limited. Before a review, I would like for you to try and answer the big questions for yourself. Take about 10 seconds to pause the video, and we'll be right back. Hopefully you guys paused the video and reviewed. So question 1, how are gender roles in the home similar in Eastern Asia and Western Europe? At home, both regions experience women being seen as trophy wives as sources of labor. Number 2, how are gender roles in the workplace similar in Eastern Asia and Western Europe? In the workplace, both regions saw the women being treated lesser, as women were forced to maneuver the machines without experience in miserable conditions. Number 3, did the roles in the home and workplace differ between the two regions? Well, in perception, yes. The common consensus amongst people today were that the way women were viewed both inside and outside the house in Eastern Asia was worse than the lives of women in Western Europe. However, as we can see, that's clearly not the case. I would like to thank the following sources for this information, as well as Google Images for the images that have been seen in this video. I would also like to thank you guys for watching the video and supporting us as well. But before we go, there is one thing I have to do. Hang on just a minute, let me just go ahead and... I want you guys to make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, or else you're next in the Gender Elementos. Okay.